Hey everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast. My name is Kevin McCaffrey, and over here, it's a comedian and a Cubs fan who's going to be in Chicago at Zany's this very weekend. Adam Amawala. What's up, Adam?
How are you doing? Yes, please come see me at Zany's Rosemont
For
Friday and
real.
Saturday, the 23rd and 24th. Two shows each night. Tyler DePatis, another shout out to Tyler, the pastry man, who's going to attempt to come to the show with his girlfriend on late Friday night. If anyone else is listening and wants to come, slide into the old DMs and let me know, and I may be able to get you some comps. Kevin, I don't know how you're doing this morning, but I am filled with regret, which is not different from how I usually feel.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm like that
especially
for
this
sure.
morning.
Yeah, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess who was at the Yankee game last night and left after the eighth inning?
Oh, damn, dude. That's incredible timing. It was you, I guess.
Yeah, it was me. It was me.
Holy
Guess who
shit.
didn't see number 60 or a walk-off grand slam?
So you missed Aaron Judge's 60th home run and a walk-off grand slam, and Anthony Rizzo double in the middle of that too, for our Rizzo lovers out there, of which I'm one. That's one. As far as regular season games go that aren't like division clinching or something,
Yeah.
that's it's probably one of the worst innings in history to miss in recent history, I
Yeah.
guess.
I'm still kind of reeling from this.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. I had the foresight last week to see how things were lining up with Judge and buy tickets to this game.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what to say other than the fact that I rarely leave games early. I was with a few folks who were ready to go. I didn't want to be a poop about it. And also, Judge was 0 for 3. I thought, what's the likelihood that he really does it tonight? Well, apparently quite good. And I've had a lot of good luck when it comes to being around for cool baseball things, sports things. Obviously, we've talked about how things lined up for me to go to the World Series, the NLDS in 17, all of that. So I realize I shouldn't complain, but to miss that one, that one stings.
I'm surprised for a number of reasons, because you not only do you stay for pretty much the whole game, even at weird times. I remember you stayed really deep into a weekday game, Cubs versus Mets years ago. I want to say you ended up getting a foul ball from it, right? Or a ball thrown to you, I think. Am I thinking of the right game?
Yeah, there was also, well, you also might be thinking of the Cubs Nationals game where it ended with a back pick.
That too.
I think
That's
it was
pretty
like
great.
a David Ross back pick after like a 2-hour rain delay. And that was one where like everyone else went home and I was like, I will see you later. I am staying at this game.
Yeah, so it's very rare for you to do that. You also go to plenty of meaningless games if you have a
Sure.
chance to. So I think what I can sense from you, I think you're being very gracious about the other people you were there with, is what I feel like I'd be doing a bigger heave-ho of tossing people under the bus right now, for sure. Because I remember the closest thing to that, and it's a Cub thing, in 1993. It was the first time I ever left a game early. It was myself, my brother Joe, 1993. So I was 10 or 11, I guess. And Cubs versus Phillies, and it was the Phillies team that went to the World Series. It was me, my brother Joe, my grandfather, and my uncle JR. And the Cubs were down a bunch. Everyone was hitting home runs, wind blowing out day. My uncle JR was the one who really was like, can we go? Can we go? And my grandfather was not into it, but we tried to be polite and we left. And turns out our car was in one of those Wrigleyville parked in things, so we couldn't even get the car out and so we sat and listened on the radio while the Cubs came all the way back. They ended up losing, but they came back and it was 11-10, I want to say.
Right.
Wes Chamberlain hit a couple bombs, I remember, for the Phillies. I believe there maybe was a Maldonado bomb in there somewhere, but that's my grandfather was just stewing because he's not a person who would leave games early, and that strikes me as you, and it strikes. But I also know the vibe when everyone else wants to leave, and I won't ask for names, but do they listen to this podcast?
I think it's unlikely.
Okay. They fucked you over pretty bad. I think you were very polite, and I'm sorry that led to this.
I will say that I didn't push back a lot. It wasn't like, hey, I really would prefer to stay. No, I want to, there wasn't a lot of that. I kind of just accepted it, and I somehow, I don't know why I thought this, but I was like, oh, he probably won't do it anyway, and then we'll just have avoided the rush
I mean,
afterwards. But
yeah. To your credit, people usually.
if I missed the Grand Slam, I could live with it. The missing number 60 is tough.
I was going to say, to your credit, when you say you probably won't do it, almost always people don't hit a 60th homer. Like
Right.
statistically speaking, you'd be right almost every minute of baseball history. You know, that's
Yeah.
it's very so usually stat wise you would be right. I'm sorry you missed it in person, but yes, Aaron Judge hit 60 yesterday. Stanton hit the first walk-off grand slam down 3 for the Yankees that I wasn't there for this year because I was there the other time
Ah,
that happened. I was there when Josh
right.
Donaldson, that piece of garbage, did the the walk-off granny trick against the Rays
Right.
earlier this year. So I was there for that. But yeah, big day, big baseball day, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I could go tonight. Like, I don't have a show. I could theoretically go to Yankee Stadium tonight, but I don't feel like I deserve it. I don't feel like the baseball gods will reward me if I go.
I understand that, and yeah, and it feels like if you did go, it would be less likely for it to happen, which of course isn't true, but it
Right.
feels like that too.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'm sorry, yeah.
It wouldn't eh, if I hadn't gone at all, I don't think that I would mind, but
Hmm.
to have like been in the stadium and then have that happen like 20 minutes later,
That's
pretty crushing.
that is very rough. Yes. That well, I'm sorry to hear that. But you know, in good news, the Cubs beat the Marlins. So you know, yesterday 2-1. Uh,
I mean, just to know that I wasn't in the stadium for a David Bodie game-winning sac fly, that one hurts. It hurts. I
all
should have gone
Bodie.
down to Florida.
Yep.
I would have been
There's
half the I would have been half the crowd.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to regret here today. Yeah, it was all Bodie all the time for the offense. Knocked in both runs with a homer and a sac fly to almost the same spot, the same direction, to
Hmm.
left center. He was getting good wood on the ball. Also, Esteban Quiroz, the
Yeah,
was
what a great story.
it is a great story. He's an older minor league. He was a career minor leaguer up until this point. Kind of, I think he's about. I want to say he's 30. Yeah, he's
Hmm.
30 years old. He's an interesting shape of a second baseman. He's 5'6", 200 pounds. So he's fire hydrant esque, and he made a great defensive play. He got his first 2 hits of his major league career. Now the Cubs did, I believe, technically trade Harold Ramirez to the Rays for him, who is having a very good offensive year. So that is a
Mm.
miss, but it was nice to see Carros get those hits and second Cub of the week to get his first major league hits. Jared Young also first couple of major league hits. He had a hit last night, and he's even stolen a base this week.
That is true, and for all of you out there who love to fetishize our young prospects, let it
Hmm.
be known that Canario hit 3 home runs in Iowa last night,
And
or
Mr.
for
Canario,
Iowa. I don't think it was in Iowa, but yeah.
yes, three. Yeah, Alexander Canario. He hit 3 bombs, and he's got, I think that puts him at 34 on the season total, which is one of
Hmm.
the higher totals in the minor leagues. He's tied with Matt Mervis, the Cubs first base guy who's had an amazing year. Both he and Canario have bumped up a few levels and are sitting there at AAA now. But yeah, Canario three home run game. Exciting. Canario, who I saw, Adam, I don't know if you saw on the Twitters in the Twitterverse, and if you are on Twitter, please follow us at Away Games Pod. But I saw some people with bigger followings than us this week, talking about how now might be a good time to flip Canario. And we saying that several weeks ago on this podcast? We were.
We certainly we are trendsetters. That's how we've always been known. Yeah, listen, if you're gonna stockpile prospects, you are also allowed to flip them for people who can help you win at the major league level. I just want to put that out into the universe. I don't know if
Hmm.
our friend Ken Schultz got to say that directly to a Ricketts, but
Yeah, that's a good point. Our friend Ken Schultz and Bleed Cubby Blue, podcast host and writer Sarah Sanchez both were at Pride Day at Wrigley Field. Seems like it was a fun time. Besides the Cubs losing, I'm fairly certain they did. But yes, Sarah and Ken got to meet Tom Ricketts. We heard.
they met Laura Ricketts. Ken managed to bite his tongue, but
Hmm.
apparently Sarah. I don't know if we're allowed to be sharing this information, but I believe Sarah directly told Tom Ricketts to extend Wilson Contreras, and if that is in fact the case, round of applause for Sarah Sanchez. It's a ballsy move that I very much respect.
That's how you use your access. Great job, Sarah. Go listen to her podcast. Maybe she'll recount it in her own words, but that we were happy to hear that, and to hear via Ken Schultz that as soon as she said you should extend Wilson Contreras, Ricketts went straight into blaming the agent. So that, I mean, it's just like very funny that with fans on Pride Day, Ricketts goes straight to that, where it's just such a great example of him being shocked, surprised, and unprepared when confronted with literally any question besides like, hey Tom, how fun are you? Anything that's not like kissing his ass directly, he is
Right.
completely thrown off kilter by
Yeah.
and has no idea how to answer. So good on Sarah Sanchez for at least
What's your favorite
putting that out there.
color?
Yeah, yeah, even that he'd probably struggle. So yeah, but that otherwise it seems like Pride Day went off pretty nice.
Yeah. Any other Cubs stuff over the past week that's been of interest to you?
Yeah, the Canario thing you mentioned is interesting. The three homers he's had. He's also really increased the amount of walks he's been taking this year. And when we talk about flipping him, I mean, right now he appears to be a real breakout prospect. Like this is a guy who probably is going to be getting around that edge of the top 100 heat now. He has a plus plus arm. He can play a little bit in center, but really you don't want that. This is a guy who's sort of made for right field or a corner. But he's stolen a good number of bases this year. The walk rate is good. The strikeout rate's really dropped. But when you're looking forward, basically the outfield prospects you have are PCA, Canario, Brennan Davis is still a thing.
Mhm.
Remember, he's back taking at bats now, and the Cubs have Seiya Suzuki and Wright locked up for several years. Ian Happ is still here and a very good major league player, an all star. And it's just I think it's just a good. And we have like Nelson Velasquez, for instance, whose bat sort of profiles along with like similarly to Canario's, even though Velasquez is a couple years older. It's just all to say, I don't know who the right guys to pick are, but you can't keep all of them, and we should be
Mhm.
getting closer to the area where it's time to start packaging some of the depth of this system into deals for guys who are producing at the major league level right now. So prospect wise, that's a thing. Also, there's a couple of pitching notes this week. Adrian Sampson, very good again last
Mhm.
night. I don't know if you saw that.
I did, and also I assume this is the other kind of pitching note you have, but beyond Sampson being good, which he's been pretty solid. I mean, I
Very
think
good, yeah.
it's been long enough and enough starts that I think it's safe to say there may be something with Adrian Sampson, at least as like a bottom end part of a good rotation, I should say,
Hmm.
or like a competitive rotation. But Hayden Wesneski with a terrific start over the weekend that arguably got me to the finals in fantasy. It was very close. I won, I think the final because it's 2 weeks for the first round of fantasy baseball playoffs. I was the top seed. I think the final score I won like 755 to like 730. Like it was
Okay.
very, very close. And the two performances that got me over the edge were picking up Wisniewski on a flyer, who was like only a Cub fan would pick someone like that up. Like I just
Hmm.
had a feeling, he's starting. I think maybe he has a good outing, and I think
And
he got me
against a
like
bad
24
offense, the
points.
Rockies, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also picked up Javi Baez just on Sunday because Whit Merrifield like never plays anymore and he's not worth rostering. So I dropped him and picked up Baez, and Baez homered and got me another like 7.5 points, and bang bang
Hey.
boom, I'm in the finals.
Hey, I love to see that from Javi Baez. And Javi, by the way, just put a lot of money towards making food free and available in Puerto Rico for people suffering from obviously the hurricane and massive power outages and stuff. Javi is really helping out a lot of people down there. So that's not on field stuff, but awesome stuff from our old friend Javi. Yeah, so Wisniewski pitched great. I think he went 7 innings. I want to say he's missing a lot of bats. The slider is just a plus plus pitch. It really is.
Right.
The fastball, the velocity is okay. He's like 94 to 96 on it, but it doesn't seem to fool anybody. The changeup seems to flash plus and then flash below average. Like it's just
Mhm.
inconsistent. But I think, yeah, this is. I think Sampson and Wisniewski we can tie together in one way. Obviously, Wisniewski is much younger than Sampson. I think 5 or 6 years younger. So that's someone you think of more as a like long term guy. Maybe you think of as a higher ceiling. But I think these are both guys as we start looking into next year, where you're thinking you probably do not, if you think you're going to contend, you probably do not want to start the year with either in your rotation as one of the five sure spots. But this is where you start really liking those kinds of guys at your AAA rotation depth, or possibly
Mhm.
coming up in Wisniewski's case, maybe more than Sampson's, but coming out of the bullpen first before developing into the full starter role, sort of how Steele and Thompson did. And about Sampson, like he still has options available, which is very important because that means next year he can be shuttled to the minor leagues and back. Unless I'm reading that wrong, that it seems like even though he is 30, he still has options available, which makes it a lot nicer for flexibility's sake, bouncing back and forth.
Right. And Wisniewski is the same way, right?
Yes, yeah. Wisniewski
Yeah.
still has has the options available too. So both those guys, I think, it's better depth. Like when you think of guys in your rotation, you're thinking of like the sixth or seventh or eighth starters who are gonna get plenty of starts, and it might be a thing where next year, even if Wisniewski's really good, I think this is a good development for the Cubs because even earlier this year, it feels like every new guy we talked about was like, well, maybe he can be a multi-inning reliever. And now,
Mhm.
even if we're not talking about bang on like middle of the rotation or better starters, we're like, okay, these guys are at least starters for sure if you need it, you
Mhm.
know. So
Right.
it's a step up in that. And I think, those are guys you feel are like a little more exciting. And you throw Caleb Killian in there too as guys who maybe you're thinking of as like your 6, 7, 8 starters, something like that.
Right. And also nice to see that Adbert Alzo-live is alive.
Alzo-live, baby. Yeah, he is. He is back, and that is the main other. That's the main other Cub note that I had here is that Adbert Alzo-live is back. He has, I think, as of now, he's had 2 appearances where he went 2 innings both times. Right.
Hmm. And
Um,
he's looked. I mean, it's just nice to see him back in the
yeah.
big leagues. I feel like he was. I feel like you made a joke about this either on our podcast or on Wrigleyville about like Braylon Marquez. Like, did he even exist? Was
Yeah.
that some sort of figment of our imagination?
It feels like Mandela effect, doesn't it? Where
Right.
it's just like this is, yeah. Braylon Marquez was, I feel like, a very top end prospect, throwing 102 as a lefty, and I think he started a game in the major leagues once, and then we've has he ever even entered the United States again?
It's
I
unclear.
I literally do not know if he has come back to America. I know there was problems with, theoretically, if this man exists, coming back. There was visa issues. He got COVID at least twice. There was a shoulder thing. So I don't know. So it is nice to see Adbert make the development from standing on a yoga ball to actually standing on a mound and missing a lot of bats. He struck out the side in his first inning, had a rough second inning, and then yesterday against the Marlins, he threw 2 really good innings. And this is like this is something where now I think with as much as Alzolai's been injured, it's not just this year; it's a bunch in the years before that too. I think this is now a guy where we are saying this is a multi-inning reliever. You know?
Right. Oh yeah, I was gonna say any situation where we head into next year, assuming that Alzolai is going to be part of the rotation, I completely disagree with that. I think I would love it if he never gets injured again, but I think generally when you have someone who has these kinds of like ongoing issues, you have to believe what you see, and I totally think that maybe that is the fix. Maybe him just pitching shorter outings helps keep some of that at bay. But either way, I think expecting a full season out of him is unwise.
I yeah, I agree. And I was someone who really wanted to stick with him starting as long as we could because that was the best starting, prospect that the Cubs had in a really long time. And then he came up, and I remember it feels so long ago, but I think it was the end of season press conference even was it last year, the end of season press conference, where Jed was saying that, now we know Adbert Alzo-live is a rotation guy going forward.
Hmm.
There's a chance it was the offseason before that, but it was pretty recent where we were saying, okay, Alzo-live is one of the five, you know? So
Hmm.
this is just to say, I mean, that's how we think of Justin Steele in this moment, right? But injuries
Right.
can change things really quickly. Like Steele, we think of as like the most, settled in starter of the guys who've come up through the system at this point now, with Keegan probably right behind him. But yeah, I think at this point, Alzo-live is a multi-inning reliever that just is what he is, and he's got two very good pitches. I don't know if you would say they're both the fastball and the curvish slider thing he's throwing now both qualify as plus, but they're clearly good enough to go one time through the rotation, maybe through the
Right.
lineup, excuse me. And if you can have a guy sort of him in the Keegan Thompson role from earlier this year, I think
Hmm.
that could be fun and interesting going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the move with him. And he would I think at this point he would be one of those like towards the end of your 25, 27 people, whatever it is. Like
Hmm.
I think he's kind of if his role is to be a long reliever, I think that's maybe more of where he falls organizationally, like in terms of the depth chart. But
Yeah.
hopefully that's just like a basement, and then he ends up being more reliable than that. But um, the last thing I was going to bring up was of all of the kind of recent Cubs rumors we've heard or like off-season rumblings, are there any that you're particularly excited about? Do you give any credence to any of these things when we see tweets from like sources tell me that Trey Turner is interested in playing for the Cubs? Like, what do you care about any of that, or is any of that on your radar?
It's on my radar. It, as far as do I care about it, I guess I do, but this is one of those things where the rumors, they could be, the people publishing tweets and reports about these rumors could just be making them up, and it could likely end up being correct because the holes are so obvious and the lack of spending from a team of this size is so egregious that the
Hmm.
rumors of, okay, one of the shortstops from the second best shortstop class of all time, after last year's, is interested in the Cubs. Yeah, I bet he's interested in the Cubs theoretically because they have a lot of money and they could spend some of that money on him, So I bet
Right.
he's interested in that. Or even if he isn't interested, he's going to say he is, so it helps his negotiating. But yeah, I mean, the Cubs just have to. I mean, we've said this before about other things, but they just have to get one of these shortstops. They have to get one of these top end starters. So the only notable thing that I think that was new, because we know Senga from Japan is one of those starters, Carlos Rodon. Those are the guys we've talked about. Um, Sahadev also mentioned Justin Verlander and as well as DeGrom. We know DeGrom's going to opt out, and I don't expect the Cubs to get DeGrom, but he mentioned Verlander a couple times in a way that like I wouldn't have thought of before. And Verlander's having a stupid season. If you
Right.
look over there, he's old and still the best. It's crazy, and coming off Tommy John
Yeah,
too.
Houston seems to have something going
Something
on
up.
over there
I know it's like
because I don't know.
it. Yeah, I would have rather he come over when we got Quintana, but uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess I give credence to them in that I agree they're going to get one of each of those guys. If they don't, it's
Hmm.
just it's a relying on offering a qualifying offer to Wilson Contreras and nothing else level of organizational failure. So I don't doubt they can fail. We've seen them do it, but yeah. How do you feel? Are you excited reading these rumors? Are you like? I mean, I think we're all sort of mentally constructing what we want the team to be going
Right.
forward.
I think I'm excited, but I'm also ready to be hurt and angry.
Yeah, I feel that.
So, like, truly, if you, I don't even know if one can make this bet right now, but
Hmm.
like, if you set the Cubs over under for 2023 at 81 games, I genuinely wouldn't know which one to pick.
At 81 wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now the
I
Cubs
think
just
I do think they're going to play more than 81 games. Will they win
yeah
more than 81?
yeah I we, right. that's a good call. They just won their 63rd game, which guarantees they won't lose 100, which I thought they would relatively recently.
Yeah.
So they're gonna end this year, I don't know, about 70 wins probably, right? Or just a touch
Mhm.
under 70, we think.
Yeah, something like that.
So will they improve 13 get? Yeah, I mean, without even seeing the roster, I think you're setting the over-unders right at about 500, which is pretty disappointing after two real loser years. But I mean, I guess we don't know till we see it. I think, as you say, I think a reasonable approach is the waiting to get hurt again,
Right.
um, of it all. So yeah, who is there? Do you have an early pick as far as which of those rumored guys you'd be most excited to actually get?
Well, I mean, how does Nico's breakout season impact any of this? Like, is the idea you still go after the best player you can get at shortstop and then move Nico back to second? Is that kind of the notion?
I do, yeah. I think the way that Nico's success this year, and Nico is down again. He's injured. Nico he's put up a 4.1 WAR year, which is tied with Carlos Correa this year for what that's worth. Um, I think his success is just a bonus. It's almost like it's
Hmm.
in terms of who they should sign, it is completely irrelevant to me. Like it should have no effect on who they sign.
Right.
Because it should just be good. That's a good player, like we're supposed to have.
Mm.
So get another one. So I think, yeah, I think you have to get one of those shortstops, unless you do something weird like, look, if Nolan Arenado opts out and you want to get our
Hmm.
Arenado for third and leave Nico at short, I would be fine with that at this point, too.
Right. Or if you want to sign Aaron Judge, feel free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go. I mean, shit. Could you imagine if they sign Aaron Judge and Trey Turner, and and Carlos Rodon? Okay, now
Right.
we're talking. Like
And I also think that given where they're at organizationally, I think the move starting pitcher wise is to you sign a Rodon or Senga for a longer deal, and then you sign a Verlander or that sort of person for like 2 years, 65 million, or whatever it would take to get that sort of thing done. And then that way you have at least you have some flexibility in terms of not tying up a lot of years. You're just tying up some money. So I think if you told me that the Cubs get like a top end one or one and a half top end starting pitchers, one of the big shortstops, and then some additional pieces, and they don't do anything with Hap, and they re-sign Contreras, all of which sounds improbable and almost
yeah,
certainly not likely to happen. But
you'd think
like,
maybe half
if
of
all of
those
those
things. Yeah,
things, yeah, if all of those things happen, I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot of complaining. But yeah, I don't know. I think if you envision a rotation next year that's like, I don't know, Rodon, Stroman, Hendricks towards the back end, and then you add another piece, and then maybe even keep like a Drew Smiley or something like that. I think
yeah,
that's
and
a
Justin Steele's in there.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it.
think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, it should be an
Hmm.
interesting offseason at the very least. And one thing, the final thing I'll say about the offseason, I learned something today, Adam. So I thought that because the Cubs, if you're a draft pick fan, the win against Miami is you're not as excited about because it's sort of it pushes the Cubs up the standings. They're sitting there right in about eighth worst team, which they've been.
Yeah.
They also were last year, more or less. So I thought it was only the top five teams get in the lottery for the number one pick. It's not true,
Hmm.
actually. Apparently, unless this report by CBS is and by Jim Callis, actually, there's a tweet from Jim Callis. All 18 non-playoff clubs enter a lottery for the top six picks. Percentage chances of each team getting the number one choice in reverse order winning percentages. As of right now, the Cubs in eighth would have a 3.9% chance. So, but the top three teams all have 16.5%. Four has
Hmm.
13.25 and five has 10%. It descends from there. But point being, there's a chance. There's still all the playoff teams have
That
a
three
tiny
and a
chance.
half percent chance is a higher percentage than the Bulls had when they got the number one pick that turned into Derrick Rose. I believe they had a 1.7% chance of winning that draft lottery.
I mean, and I think that was the same as when the Magic got the number one pick that turned into Penny Hardaway too.
Wow.
That was they had one ping pong ball out of 66, I think is what it was, and they ended up getting that. So just a thing as far as we maybe you don't have to root as hard for the tank in the final 2 weeks. You can feel completely clean about enjoying Cubs winning games. Not that you didn't before, but just as an FYI. So.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that's all I got. I'll be at the White Sox Guardians game with Ken Schultz tomorrow night. We'll be at Wrigley for some sort of gallivanting on Saturday. I'll be at the Bears game Sunday. I mean, I don't even know if I'm going to have time to do these comedy shows.
and the comedy shows, if they happen, over under how many? We'll say over under on 1.5. Adam's going to be at the Rosemont Zanies, so go see him this weekend, Friday, Saturday, September. What's that? 23rd, 24th.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Cool.
Yeah, that's right.
Go see him, folks. Thanks for listening. At Away Game Spot on Twitter, Instagram. We'll catch you later.